Hey guys, welcome back to MMA Library. Today in MMA and UFC news, Arnold Allen gives his thoughts on Max Holloway in a recent interview and believes the damage Holloway sustains in the octagon has to catch up to him eventually.
Given, the fights he's had with Volkanovski, I can't remember which one. I think it was the second one. I scored the second one, I think, for Max Holloway.
Right.
And how impressive Alex has been looking. That makes Max look even better, how competitive he's been. Obviously, the last fight wasn't very competitive, but the others, they've been very close decisions, and Volkanovski's gone up a weight against someone that no one really wants to fight and looked amazing. I thought he won as well. So
I know what you're going to tell me. I'm preparing for the best version of Max Holloway, but we all know at some point, Father Time catches up. He's been around for a very long time. He's taken a lot of damage, taken a lot of strikes, right? He's handed them out, but he's also, been hit too. Do you feel like the performance this past July was an indication that his career is rounding third, as we like to say here in America? It's headed home, or do you feel like that was just, hey, him against Alex Volkanovski, and it's a different ballgame when you're fighting Alex Volkanovski? How do you assess that and where he's at right now?
I mean, he's only human, right? The damage has got to catch up to. He has been in, he's not much older than me, but he has been in a lot of crazy fights for a long time against top tier athletes, and he's given a lot of damage, but he always takes as much as he gives as well.
Alexander Volkanovski believes he would destroy Islam Makhachev if he was a featherweight. Here's what Volkanovski had to say on the MMA Hour.
Watch that. Like when you rewatch it and you think you won, you feel like you were robbed of a moment of history. Are you mad right now? Are you?
That's what hurts a bit too, right? Like it was a massive moment. The whole week it was setting up for something massive, and we pretty much did it. You know what I mean? Finish that fight like that, you know what I mean? And then that could have been just the perfect ending to the story if the judges just got it right, you know what I mean? In Australia too, and I think that actually the judges that weren't here, the judges are flown in, so they're not Aussie judges. But I mean, with the crowd and all that, you're thinking, even though you watch it, without the crowd and all that, we're confident we got them rounds. And then you got the crowd and all that atmosphere and all that, you're like, oh man, how could they get this wrong, Imagine if we were the same size. Imagine if we were the same weight class. Imagine if he was a featherweight. Yeah, I don't want to sound like, I don't want to be that guy. Eh?
It's a crazy thing, though. It's a crazy thing because
I don't want to be that guy. But if he was just a featherweight in my division, I squash him, and it's a walk in the park. And no offense to him, but that's legit. I mean, I could make this a walk in the park right now. We fight again, and we do this rematch, which we talked about. I talked about it. Islam talked about it. UFC's talking about it, and everyone else is talking about it. So I think we can make that happen.
Anthony Smith had some advice for Islam Makhachev in a recent podcast. He tells Islam to hold on to the pound-for-pound #1 spot tight, as Jon Jones is coming to get it. I think Islam needs to hold on to that #1 pound-for-pound spot really tight right now, because I think there's going to be a lot of different conversations if Jon Jones comes back, and is even a small portion of what he was last time we saw him. Jon Jones, this is his long-anticipated move to heavyweight. He's been talking about it forever. I think he has the toughest test in the entire division. I think Jon Jones is swinging for the fences right away. There's a lot easier matchups in the heavyweight division for Jon Jones. There's bigger names that are easier with bigger paychecks, and I think he has the toughest fight on his hands right now. I think Ciryl Gane does a lot of the same things that Jon Jones does on the feet, and to be very fair with you, I think Ciryl Gane does a lot of those things better than Jon Jones. As far as his movement on the feet, his stance switches, I think that he's probably more powerful. Technically, I think Ciryl Gane's probably a better striker, but we all know how Jon Jones is. He's the greatest of all time in my opinion. I can't wait for this fight, it's going to be incredible. Belal Muhammad joins the Schmo to discuss his desire to be the backup for Leon Edwards vs. Kamaru Usman 3 at UFC 286. Here's what Belal had to say.
Yeah, I'm hoping that it ends up being the situation where they call me out, bring me out down there, because you never know what happens. Guys been getting injured the day of, the day before, so I see they've done backups for every single title fight, so I don't understand why they would want to put me on that card. But if they give me the Kobe fight before that, I'll take it. If not, I'm ready to be the backup.
Belal then gave his opinion on the fight between Gilbert Burns and Jorge Masvidal that's set to go down at UFC 287.
I mean, for a guy like Gilbert who's calling me out, saying, oh, how's this guy ranked ahead of me? You went from fighting 11 to now you're fighting like number 12. So, I mean, that's really not going to get you anywhere. Masvidal's still a tough test, still a tough guy to fight. Obviously, he has a big name, but don't sit there and call me out when you knowing that you're going to fight Masvidal in the end regardless.
Chael Sonnen believes there should be an immediate rematch between Islam Makhachev and Alexander Volkanovski.
Now, when you have a fight that's huge, and this was very unexpected, right? The promotion of this match was not done different. The media opportunities, the consequence, even what's on the line, was not much different. The only thing identifiable that was different about this fight is how it was set. It was set organically between those two guys on the back end of a pay-per-view. That is the only thing that this fight had that would be different from some of those fights they beat. Now, why do I bring that up, guys? Because when you have a fight like that, when you have something as big as this, if you have controversy, you have a rematch. When you have a fight as big as this, okay? If you have a good fight, you have a rematch.
Ariel Helwani and his team discuss why a fight between Charles Oliveira and Beneil Dariush is happening.
By the way, you know, let me get all up in arms in favor of another guy that people say I don't back enough, Beneil Dariush. Why is Beneil Dariush fighting Charles Oliveira?
Yeah, man.
Why is that fight happening?
It's a good question.
I mean, all he had to do was wait till Saturday and he's the #1 contender. Why is this fight happening? And by the way, what a mess of a situation if Charles wins. Do we really want Charles versus Islam too?
I don't hate that. I don't hate.
It was
Charles
too
versus
one-sided.
Islam.
It was too one-sided. I don't. Who cares to see that again? You're telling me? I mean, I'd much rather see Volk versus Islam.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I would rather see Volk as
In a vacuum, sure, but the problem here is Volk's title. That's the problem. Isn't the fight itself?
Oh, I get that. I just don't understand why Beneil even has to do another fight.
I'm baffled by that.
I mean, he called for 10 fights after.
I'm baffled by that. Beneil Dariush is a rightful #1 contender, and I think he poses a lot of stylistic problems for Islam Makhachev. I think he deserves that fight, but I will say I wouldn't have a problem with Charles getting another crack if he wins that fight.
There have been some major changes to UFC fighters' contracts recently. These changes include more restrictions on the fighters and the signing of waivers to ensure the company is safe during legal battles with fighters under contract. Big John from the Weighing In podcast gives his take on the news and says the UFC is trying to take away more rights from the fighters. Here's the clip.
Yeah, I see a company trying to take away rights of fighters instead of giving them more rights like people are asking. Guys, why do you think Francis Ngannou left? These are the things. It's little things that add up to big things in the end. And you take a look and you go, I understand why the UFC wants to put this in their contract, because I don't want fighters coming out in a class action lawsuit against me, because they really kind of have one right now. And I totally understand it, but you're trying to take away the rights of the fighters by adding these things in there. All of these things are by saying, you know what, you can't sue. Who are you to say? Maybe he has the right to sue you because you him over. Now, if you don't him over, then I don't think they should be able to sue. But the reason that people can sue is it's not always fair that people can. I agree with them, but sometimes it is, because what you did to them is dirty. And it's their recourse in trying to make something that's a wrong a right. And I don't know. I just take a look at what this has been this way for a while. The contracts are very restrictive. They're very one-sided, and fighters are going to have to make a stand.
Dan Hooker has accused Islam Makhachev of cheating in the lead up to his fight against Alexander Volkanovski last weekend. Hooker tweeted that Islam hired a nurse while in Australia and was given an IV to rehydrate. Hooker then followed it up with an article which says UFC fighters can get up to a 2-year ban for using IVs in the lead up to a fight, and captioned the post with, "Prove me wrong, bet you can." He doesn't cheat, he doesn't win. According to MMA reporter Damon Martin, USADA may be launching an inquiry into the comments made by Dan Hooker. Martin tweeted, "Statement from USADA regarding the allegations from Dan Hooker regarding Islam Makhachev. USADA takes all reports of possible violations seriously, and we will actively follow up on all information we receive." Guys, thanks so much for checking out the video. If you like the content we do here on this channel, don't forget to like and subscribe to MMA Library for all the latest MMA and UFC news. We'll see you in the next video.